Your attention please. Singapore Airlines flight of J9.
Final boarding call for all passengers travelling to Singapore today on QF51. Could you please make your way to gate 77? Final boarding call.
Flight to Singapore. My name is Margaret Ann Kerry and I'm your customer service manager.
Hello everybody! At this point in the video, I just wanted to talk about what happened when I was at Changi International Airport. It actually started in Brisbane. I purchased a flight from Brisbane to Kuala Lumpur on Qantas. Paid for the ticket. It had QF51 Brisbane to Singapore, then SQ126 Terminal 2 at Changi Airport to Kuala Lumpur International Airport. On the app for this booking, the instructions were to go to the airport because this trip involves another airline. So okay, this must mean that they need to issue the boarding pass to me, and this can't be done for Singapore Airlines. This can't be done by checked in on the app or if I checked in at the machines. So I went to Brisbane International Airport, and the Qantas section is, I would say, in need of more staff, because there are situations like this where the airline itself directs passengers to go to the airport, right? And the machines don't always work. I was there waiting for one of the staff, and she was busy with another passenger, and they had to move to another machine to finish his check-in. And mine is a bit more complicated because it involves the connecting flight on a different airline. So I went to one of the Qantas desks. It was basically shoot away, go back and talk to one of the staff, but I was thinking to myself, the staff are really busy, and I think there were only 2 of them, and there were like 3 or 4 rows of these check-in machines. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna start trying to check in because the staff at the counter seemed to think I would be able to check in on the machine. So I started it, and then the message popped up, speak to a staff member. So finally the lady was available, so I said, I'm not sure what's happening. I was asked to come to the airport and I'm not able to finish my check-in on this machine. And so she checked me in, but only to Singapore. And I said, what about my connecting flight to Kuala Lumpur? And she said, no, you'll have to get that boarding pass at Changi Airport. And I said, well, I've never had to do that. The last time I had a connecting flight from Singapore to KL, I was given the boarding pass at Brisbane. And I only had an hour and a half to make that flight. And that's best case scenario if the Qantas flight wasn't delayed at all. And I'm seated in the 30s, which means there'll be a delay. I'm not the first one off the plane, so there's that time to be taken into consideration as well. And she said, oh, we'll just have to talk to someone at the transfer desk. So I'm like, okay. So the flight from Brisbane to Qantas was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed that flight. I would consider flying Qantas internationally again. It was at Changi when all the madness started. I arrived at Changi and I was super confident, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll find a transfer desk. The signage will be so obvious, I wouldn't miss it. Grab the boarding pass and I land in Terminal 1. The flight to Kuala Lumpur is at Terminal 2. They're apparently right next to each other. No need to take the transfer bus. All good, I'll be at the gate well in time for the flight, and I might even have time to look around Changi Airport, which I really wanted to do. So you'll notice that there's no footage apart from that little bit on the travelator of Changi Airport. It was too much running around trying to find out what was happening. So transfer desk D, no one was there. There was a sign to go to transfer desk C. So off I went. It's quite a long walk. Got to transfer desk C. I stood in line and I'm looking at the board and I see a bunch of airlines, but Singapore Airlines isn't on there. And I'm like, well, maybe if I'm in the wrong place, maybe they can tell me where to go. So I'm in line for a while and there's like 12 counters, but only 3 are staffed. This was very common at Changi. And info desk had no staff. There was a screen. So at transfer desk C, when I finally got to go to the counter, the lady said, oh, you need to go to Terminal 3. And I'm just like, but the flight leaves from Terminal 2 according to my booking, and where do I get my boarding pass? And she goes, you need to go to Terminal 3. So I was like, I'm not sure if I believe this lady. So I went to the information counter, which didn't have anybody there. Looked around, thought, do I want to risk walking back to the other information counter because I think there was somebody there? And then I thought, well, there's a screen here, I'll just see what it does. So I tapped it and I got connected to a gentleman and on the screen, and he said that I would have to take the SkyTrain to Terminal 3, go to transfer desk B, then take the SkyTrain back to Terminal 2. And I was like, but Terminal 2 is right there. I'm literally at Terminal 2. Why do I need to go to Terminal 3? And he was like, the boarding pass is issued at Terminal 3. Like, that's where Singapore Airlines transfer desk is. So I'm like, oh my God. And then he said, yeah, the gate's already open, so you need to hurry. And I'm just like, what the? So off I go. I've missed the SkyTrain. There's another one coming in 4 minutes. I'm just like, bloody hell, if I miss this flight, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because my luggage has gone direct to Kuala Lumpur on the tag. So they could check in my luggage all the way to Kuala Lumpur, but not myself, the person whom the luggage belongs to. So got to Terminal 3. Thank goodness transfer desk B wasn't too far from the SkyTrain stop. And of course, there's 12 counters and 3 people, 3 staff, 2 of which were for Singapore Airlines. And I'm standing there and I'm hearing people sort of like me worried, oh, I don't know, we only have half an hour. I was in that position. I had about half an hour to get to the gate in Terminal 2. And I don't know whether we should be here, they were saying, and then off they went and they said, I'm just gonna check transfer desk A, and I'm just like, holy, do I need to go to transfer desk A? But I thought, no, I'm already at transfer desk B, I'm just gonna find out what I can do here. So I was 4th in line in the queue, and then finally another staff member moved to the Singapore Airlines section and I was able to talk to her. I'm already really stressed. I'm like looking at the time, and I'm like, why is this even happening? I really should have got my boarding pass in Brisbane. And both the person I spoke to on the screen at the info desk and the lady at the Singapore Airlines transfer desk B was like, you don't have your boarding pass? I'm like, no, I don't have my that's why I'm here. I don't have my boarding pass and I need it because my flight is in 30 minutes and I don't even know whether I can make it, and there's no clear signage about where I should have gone to get my boarding pass. So I was really upset at that time. And so she's like, give me a passport and excuse me, can you please confirm which one is your surname? And then she did that swipey thing with the passport on the keyboard or whatever, and then swipe, looking, and I'm just like, well, do I have a booking or not? And then she doesn't say anything, prints out what turns out to be my boarding pass and hands it over to me. So no communication of what the hell happened, and no communication. Oh yeah, I found the booking, you know, you make it in time. None of that, just little hand over. And I'm like, what, where do I go now? I'm in an airport I've only been to once before, and that time was really smooth. And she goes, you need to go to Terminal 2. And I'm like, how do I get to Terminal 2 from here? And she says, go straight, transfer desk A, and then the SkyTrain. And I'm just like, oh my god, this airport is so big. And so off I tried to run, but I can't run because I've injured my foot. And so I'm hobbling along to find transfer desk A, and I'm hoping that it's pretty obvious. So it is pretty obvious. And then there was like a left turn and a right turn, and then the SkyTrain to Terminal 2 was like a minute away. So that's good. And got to Terminal 2, and then the gate is gate 40. And then the section that gate 40 is in is gate 30 to 40. So I'm like, oh my god, just my luck, it's the last gate and I'm already like running late. And then at Changi there's no departure announcements, so I'm like, go. And so it turned out that it was gate 30, and then there was like travel later, so travel later for a bit, and then walk, and then travel later and walk. Got to gate 30, 31, 32, 33, and then there was gate 40. So they must have gone the 30s and then looped back. And I was like, thank god. So hopped on the travel later, and then the sign was like, last call. I was like, oh my god. And you know, like always when you don't need it, there's some big group with lots of luggage sort of sauntering along and blocking the travel later. And I'm just like, oh my god. And then I look up again and it says gate closing, and I'm like, holy shit. And so they've got another set of security scan checks, which involves people taking off their jackets and showing the staff the boarding pass. So had to wait for all that, but I figured I'm already at the gate. They know that the boarding pass has been issued. Surely they'll wait. And got through all that. I was really, really nervous. And I was like, oh no. So I kept looking because there were two lines. Which line will be quicker? Which line will be quicker? And then the people in front of me are just like, do I have to take off my jacket? Yeah, the security guy said you have to take off your jacket. So just take it off, right? And got through that, got on the plane, got to my seat, and it's boiling hot in this Singapore Airlines plane. And people around me are fanning themselves, and I start fanning myself. And then a gentleman arrives, another passenger, and he said to the air steward, oh, you must be boiling in that jacket. And he says it a couple times. I think he's trying to get this air steward or air stewardess to do something. And eventually one of them says, yeah, we've turned the aircon on like 10 minutes ago. It should cool down soon. It did not. And at this time, it's like 6:25. The flight should have left at 6:35. So I'm like, okay, good, we'll be in the air soon. And then there was an announcement where it said, oh, apologies, there's minor technical issues, and the plane will cool down really quickly once we're in the air. We sat at that gate in the plane, this hot, stuffy plane, for about maybe 15 minutes. And then we began to move. I said, oh, thank God, the plane will cool down now. It did not. So we moved, and then it was just moving really, really slowly. I'm like, oh, is it because we didn't leave exactly at 6:35, even though I had to rush because they're like, oh, the gate is closing. So the gate is closing, and then we're not moving. So finally I get a bit of a view, and there's like 5 planes in front of us. So that's why we were moving really slowly. And eventually took off, and then yeah, the plane began to cool down. But in all this time, there's no announcement of, hey, there's a delay by whatever minutes. They only just said, oh, we will be landing in Kuala Lumpur at about 8. So that's about half an hour later for an hour's flight. And my brother was waiting for me in Kuala Lumpur, and I was like, oh gosh. I had to message him when we were still on land, and I haven't heard anything, but I believe it will be half an hour delayed. It was only in the air, when we can't communicate with anybody who might be waiting for us at KLIA, that they said it will be half an hour. We'll arrive around 8. So overall, my experience with Singapore Airlines was not good. And I don't understand why the boarding pass couldn't have been issued in Brisbane, because even the staff at Singapore Airport at Changi were like, you don't have a boarding pass? So I would love to find out, like, what did I miss in that booking where I should have seen, oh, you'll need to go to transfer desk B in terminal 3, and then your flight leaves at terminal 2, and you only have, realistically, even though from expected landing to expected departure I had supposedly an hour and a half, but gate closes 20 minutes before. So it's more like an hour and 10 minutes. And all the running around, and no one's around to coordinate people who unfortunately for some reason do not have their boarding passes in such a short time frame. So yeah, I'm really not impressed with how this turned out. And I've got a similar situation going back to Brisbane, where Singapore Airlines to Changi and then Qantas to Brisbane. So that one has a little bit more time. There's 2 hours between expected landing and expected departure. But I'm gonna see if I can contact the airline and ask them, please, can they just issue me my boarding pass at KLIA, so there's none of this debacle, because that's a bigger flight if I miss it, the Singapore to Brisbane leg. So yeah, I feel like, because air travel is not cheap, and there's lots of things which can be impacted if one part is missed or one part is late of the travel. Hotel bookings, appointments that we've made, and it's just like the level of communication is so poor. Is assuming that someone has been in Changi before and knows where Singapore Airlines transfer desk is and how to get there. And I just don't think it's good enough that this is the expectation of the airline's paying customer. I mean, this time I flew economy, but usually I fly business. So maybe I would have had better communication if I flew business. It's not good enough. And it just seems to be that airlines have gotten so used to taking thousands and thousands of dollars from their passengers and then not having to provide any sort of reasonable level of service. Again, the Qantas leg I was actually really happy with, and I'd fly them again. I only wish that there was an airline that flew direct from Brisbane to Kuala Lumpur. Unfortunately, Malaysia Airlines has cancelled that route. Malaysia Airlines is story for another day. Do you travel at all? And if so, do you have a favorite airline? Please share in the comments below. Thank you.